We watched as my father contributed to Dubai skyline and the building of the city. And we look right, when we look left, and we see DAMAC everywhere. It's a very proud moment.
They say real estate is all about location, but for Amira Sajwani, it's about legacy. At DAMAC, she's rewriting how Dubai lives and works. With PRYPCO, she's making property digital and fractional. And through Amali Properties, she's turning ultra-luxurious homes into art.
I'm a female in an extremely male-dominated industry, but having to prove that we are more than just the boss's kids definitely was there.
From boardrooms to Shark Tank Dubai, Amira is reshaping the next era of Dubai real estate.
And I tell my daughter this, I say, look, mommy's building homes for people, and we're providing jobs for people, and we're contributing to improving some aspect of society in some way.
Let's get into it. Amira, you grew up around real estate, but I really want to know why you actually decided to get into the family business.
You know, that's a question I get a lot. Real estate is something I think for all of us has been so ingrained in our upbringing, in our blood, and how we saw my father contribute to the skyline of Dubai over the years, that it just came very naturally. It's something that we're all very passionate about. You know, people ask us, they say, you know, do you feel like you just went into it because of the family business? But today, if I was to be given a choice, or even 5 years ago, of anything else, I would not see myself do anything other than real estate.
Really, even growing up, you didn't say like, oh, maybe I just want to try something else.
You know,
it's all around me.
There was a point at which I wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And my father played it so smart. He was like, okay, you want to be a lawyer? I was still in school. He goes, that's fine. He goes, come spend a week in our legal department and you see if you enjoy it. And then if you really enjoy it, go be a lawyer. And I lasted 2 days. And I went to him after 2 days and I'm like, you know, Baba, I think, and he goes, oh, it's all paperwork. It's not like Criminal Minds and, you know, Law and Order, like when you see them going into court and defending criminals. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to stick to more real estate or more business side of things.
I mean, you have a lot on your plates right now. You're running 3 things. DAMAC, you have PRYPCO, you have Amali Properties. Tell us more about, like, is there a shared vision between these 3 ventures, or do you run them completely separately?
Look, I run them completely separately, but they're all real estate heavy.
Yeah.
And so definitely the way I think and the way I'm able to shift hats between them and their requirements, it comes from this ability because I'm so ingrained in the real estate market from a very young age. I think it would have been much more difficult for me to be able to manage 3 completely different entities with 3 completely different visions, and go forward with all 3 of them if I was not exposed to so much real estate from such a young age, and if I didn't love it so much, to be fair.
No, I get that, but also they're all very different, and I'm sure you didn't wake up one day and be like, I want to manage 3 things all at once.
Actually, that was a very gradual reach. So obviously I started in the MAC, which has been phenomenal. The reason, you know, Amali Properties started was because we saw a gap in the niche of ultra luxury and something that we could cater to a little bit differently. And so that's how that started. Obviously, it's something that, you know, we do very specific curated projects. In DAMAC last year, I had 30 new projects in the year. In Amali, we had 1. So it's a very different experience. It's a very specialized way of thinking, way of dealing with clients and what they require and how to adjust to that and how to provide for that mindset. And then PRYPCO was actually the gaps that I saw in the real estate market while being at the helm of DAMAC, but I wanted to become an industry solution, not just a solution for, you know, 1 company or 2 companies, but something that caters to the whole industry. So in PRYPCO, we do fractional ownership now, where we allow access into real estate from $500 or 2,000 dirhams. And again, that's something that people should have access to all the properties in the market, whatever is the best deal, whatever can get them the best value, and be able to have those options and choices. And so that was one of the reasons I ventured out. Today, PRYPCO has grown into being not just fractional ownership, but we are one of the largest mortgage platforms in the country as well. We do almost $1 billion dirhams plus of mortgages a month, every month.
I'm all for the mission. I know you guys are making it a lot more accessible, but you could have just invested in someone else that's doing it. Why did you decide to actually run it yourself?
That's a great question. I love it. You know, being able to look at where the challenges are, pinpoint where the gaps are, build something from scratch and really be able to contribute. We watched as my father contributed to, like I said, Dubai skyline and the building of the city. For us, when we drive down, you know, Sheikh Zayed Road, when we look right, when we look left, and we see DAMAC everywhere, it's a very proud moment.
What a feeling, I'm sure.
It is. It's a very proud moment. He's done a lot. We're very proud of him. And, I could have invested in something that was a solution, but then whoever I invested in, their kids would be proud of them one day. And I wanted my kids to be proud of something that, I've achieved, and the family has achieved. So they're definitely going to be proud of DAMAC, but I'd love to do in the PropTech world what my father did in the brick and mortar world.
It's also interesting about these different ventures also is the size of it and how you run each one. I mean, you go from managing thousands of people at DAMAC to way more nimble teams at Amali and PRYPCO, right? How do you switch hats?
When I started in DAMAC, my team was actually very nimble.
Really?
My team at DAMAC, when I first started, was much smaller. We grew it over the years. The market was in a very different place when I started in DAMAC. It was not where it is today. We were doing much less like every other developer in town. And so seeing that journey allowed me to learn essentially how to grow quickly and based on the requirements of the market. And so we've also been very exposed to how my father did that. When my father started DAMAC in 2002, it wasn't that long ago. A lot of people assume that the company is much older than it is. It's around 22 years old. And so we were kids. We were in the office with him. We saw how he scaled it. We saw when he had to put on his hat of cost management versus spending, growth versus, profitability. And so we've learned that over the years. And so it's a great opportunity to be able to do both because both have their pluses and minuses.
Yeah. I come from the startup world, so I can't imagine switching hats during the day as well. How do you manage that? Honestly, kudos to you.
I think it just comes with being able to get used to it over time.
Yeah.
But I think a big part of it is seeing that journey from day one. Also, we as a family are always interested in many different businesses. So as a group, we own Roberto Cavalli, which is a fashion brand.
Yeah.
We own a ceramics company. We've dived into data centers. Over the years, we've ventured into a lot of things. We have a big investment arm where we get access to a lot of startups and investments. And so we learn those businesses. So we're definitely always looking at how different businesses are run. What's the pros and cons of the different industries and different styles.
What's great about your story is that you also grew up around business, right? Your entire life. But entrepreneurship is something that is deeply personal. What's your experience been like if you look back?
Entrepreneurship is a very different experience for everyone.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I have no complaints. I think nobody will go through entrepreneurship without having ups and downs. That's totally normal. And you have to be mentally prepared and built for that. It's not going to be great every day, but you're going to wake up every day feeling like you're doing something that you love, and you have to keep doing it. And I'm a mother of two, and I think being a parent is very similar. You love being a parent. There's nothing in the world you love more than your children, but not every day is fun. And that's okay. I remember once I was complaining about something. My father looked at me, he goes, you love your kids, but you have to clean up their diapers too. And I was like, that's a great example for entrepreneurship. Not every day is easy. There are challenging days. I don't look forward to when my kid is 14 and being sassy and answering me back, but I will still love her more than anything in life itself. And so I think it's a very similar journey.
And it's part of it, right? But it really tests your limit. I mean, with my own experience, it was like a crash course on who Dania is. Knowing what my strengths are, my limits, my weaknesses. I've never seen I put myself under the microscope to figure out Dania. That was my entrepreneurship journey. What are things you found out about yourself?
The things I found out about myself, definitely I found out what I love to do and what I, enjoy less. Yeah. I think entrepreneurship is more a mental game, and realizing that it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think that's a tough pivotal point in any entrepreneur's journey, because when you start as an entrepreneur, you just want to be successful immediately. Yeah. You want success to come, you want growth to come, you want to see those numbers grow, you want to see the brand grow, and realizing that takes time and effort and just doesn't happen overnight. I think that's an important lesson in any entrepreneur's life.
And did you figure out you had any blind spots?
So I think one of my blind spots, and we have a common blind spot as a family, is we'll take on a lot more more than we can chew.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. But I think for the most part, we're willing to take that chance that it doesn't work out in order to go for the bigger meat at the end of the table.
It's interesting that you also said that you and your family kind of
Definitely. My dad has a habit of doing the same. He takes on a lot, but he enjoys it and we enjoy it. You know, like we'd rather do 10 things and get 8 right than do 3 things and get 3 right.
Do you think there was ever like added pressure that you had to prove that you're not just the boss's daughter?
100%. Especially when I started. You know, not just being the boss's daughter, I'm a female in an extremely male-dominated industry. Across the level that I work with, I think there's not a single woman that kind of, at the time that I started, was there. Today, it's a much, more welcoming environment. So it's extremely male-dominated. But growing up with 3 brothers definitely prepared me for that. I'm used to being in a house of boys. I'm used to having male energy around. And so that was a easier transition for me. But having to prove that we are more than just the boss's kids definitely was there. But, my father gave me this advice when I first started and it really did work well. He goes, you have to earn your respect. I earned my respect when they see that you're not just there because you're the boss's kid. You understand what you're doing. You're able to add value to them, and you showing them that you're showing up and you're adding value and you have strategic input and execution skills that not just match theirs, but can contribute to their growth. I think that happens very quick.
You talked a lot about your dad as you're kind of answering the question. So I'd love to know, in terms of your relationship with your dad, what did that teach you the most?
That's a tough one. My father is the single biggest role model in my life. I don't think I would admire or look up to anybody more in life than my father. And I wish that for every girl that, is out there. It's a very special relationship. He taught me everything in my life, but he also drove me to be the best, coming from this region, being one of, the only girl in a house of 3 boys, it would have been much easier for me to be put aside and told, enjoy life. My father is at a, place where he can support me and I can just do nothing and have kids and, enjoy that. But he pushed me. He drove me from a very young age. I was pushed to kind of, study at the best university, graduate valedictorian, do my master's, get into the family business. He knew when to push and pull. He knew when to push me to the brink, and when I'm about to say, enough, just before that, he would pull me back and be the correct support that I needed. And so my relationship with my father is very special.
I love my dad, but there's some stuff that I'm like, I'm never going to do what you do here. So what do you do differently than your dad?
Look, I think it's not just that he's my dad. I think that generation has a different way of working. And they came from a very different place. Today, where we are a generation that's heavily reliant on technology and now on AI and but finding easier ways to do things, that generation didn't have those options. And so I think there will always be a generation gap. My kids will always think what I'm doing is, sometimes backdated or sometimes wrong, and that they're smarter than me. And I've realized after having kids that that's just sunnat al-haya. And so that's fine. I think you reach a point of being able to have mutual respect, of being able to acknowledge that he has more wisdom and experience and will always have a bigger view on life because of what he's been through and how he's built it. And that's okay. And you don't have to always agree, but if you can agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's good enough.
You were able to do great things with the work that you're doing. But what excites you the most when you wake up in the morning? What excites you the most to go to work?
What excites me the most is having an impact. I have 2 young kids, and when I had my second one, I definitely went through a moment of thinking, am I doing the right thing? My kids don't get necessarily as much time with me as they should. And I went through that kind of thinking. And something my father said to me at the time actually had a big impact on me. He said 2 things. He said, firstly, you have 2 daughters. Set the example for them that they can do what they want in life. They don't need to necessarily compromise one or the other. When they're teenagers and they're seeking out what they want to do, they'll look up to the fact that you went after your dreams. And so that's one thing. But the other thing is that having a true impact on society in some way, I think gives me a large drive. We're building properties, but when you look at it, and I tell my daughter this, I say, look, mommy's building homes for people, right? And we're providing jobs for people, and we're contributing to improving some aspect of society in some way. We're contributing to the country that has given us so much. And so I think that is a huge thing not to be undermined. At the end of the day, business is business, and it's great. And there's days that it's super fun, and there's days that it's super hectic, and the days that it's frustrating and you just want to leave. But being the boss, you can't just leave. There's a responsibility that you have that you need to execute on. And as long as you keep reminding yourself that you're having some kind of impact on a much larger scale than just yourself, that's okay. Just, order a matcha and an ice cream and cry it out and move on.
With everything on your plate, you said yes to Shark Tank Dubai. What made you say yes to that?
That was a very funny story.
We have time. You can tell us.
I don't know if it's appropriate to say this on social media. I had just had my second child. I was, she was 6-7 months. And my first kid was 2 years, having a rough time with the fact that I had a new kid. And I got a call saying, we'd like you to be on Shark Tank. We'd like you to be a judge. And of course, I was honored. I was like, I'd love to, but what is the time commitment? And they told me the time commitment of filming, which at the time was quite intense. It was like 2 or 3 weeks of everyday filming, weekends included, all day. And at first, to be honest, I was like, guys, I would love to. And in the future, please let me know. But I can't. I have a newborn essentially at home, and I have a 2-year-old, and I cannot leave them for a few weeks. I'm going to miss bedtime every day. I'm not going to be home from school. And so I was like, they were like, think about it. I was like, okay, give me a few days to think about it, but I don't think it's going to happen. And my dad calls me a few days later and he goes, Amur, he was sitting with somebody who mentioned to him that like they want me. He goes, في مسلسل هوامير يبونك. And I was like, huh? هوامير? بابا شنو يعني هوامير؟
مسلسل رمضاني.
And he's like, هذا هوامير هامور. I'm like, شنو يعني هامور? Because هذا المسلسل اللي يستثمرون مال هوامير. And then I realized Shark Tank. قرش.
Love it.
And I'm like, Shark Tank. He goes, هذا اللي قلته. I'm like, لا هامور وقرش غير ترى. And he goes, المهم يبونك.
He changed the whole franchise name. Honestly, I like هوامير.
And I laughed and I said, yeah, they want me, but the time commitment is high, to be honest, for my kids right now. And so I don't think I can do it. He goes, huh. And I already قلت لهم okay. And I was like, okay, thank you. I'll see them in a few days. But honestly, I'm so glad that he
knows
committed
what to push
for it. And it was such a nice experience. It was amazing. First of all, getting to know my fellow sharks, who I already knew before that, but that in that environment was phenomenal. But also like being able to contribute to the ecosystem of the country and the region, and having something that actually you're able to educate people more on in terms of business, and being able to give back in such a short time with lasting impact. Yeah. So like we filmed for a few weeks and then it airs for a year. And the episodes, I've had so many people reach out to me saying, we've learned so much, your questions are quite specific. I didn't know that that's what I should look out for in business. Or, I've had so many people reach out to me and say, will you take a look at my like business plan because, of what I saw you on Shark Tank. And I'm more than happy to do that for even people who reach out to me, LinkedIn, etc.
You've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of pitches, a lot of founders, a lot of businesses. What is something now that catches your attention and what is something that is a red flag?
So a lot of people ask me what I kind of look for in an investment, which I think is a similar dynamic. First and foremost is the founder. So I wouldn't say a red flag, but a box to be ticked is the founder. Yeah. Is the founder somebody whose personality, character, and passion is able to take a business forward? Have they done anything before that's, have given them business experience? And it's okay if they haven't, but then I need to probe to see, will they be able to handle the pressure, the late nights, not knowing if their business will do well or not the next month, potentially failing. By the way, a lot of businesses fail, and that's okay. But if a person's not able to accept failure, then they're not able to start a business. Yeah. And very important for me to know, is the person all in and willing to bet on themselves? So there were a few instances, for example, where relatively good founder, relatively good business, market is available for it, good competitors, but they're at a stage where you need to be all in and they don't want to quit their day job, which I understand. Some people have, responsibilities, you have bills to be paid. But it's very hard for an investor to be able to say, okay, take my money and do it, but you're not willing to risk your own. Do you feel like you will be successful?
I think that's a system issue. We're going to go off on a tangent, but like the reason why people can't do it is because they can't hedge their risks, you know, like they can't take a loan, they can't get credit cards, they can't.
For sure. And that's why I say, I don't expect people to quit their day jobs in the beginning of a business. Yeah. But if you're already started a business and it's at the inflection point of needing your full attention, then you need to be willing to bet on yourself.
Especially for that model, right?
For that model. There are businesses where you can run and you know, I think so founder is very important. Second important is obviously the business itself. I look at founder first because sometimes you find a phenomenal founder with the wrong business idea, but I'm very happy to tell the founder, listen, I'm happy to give you money and bet on you, but we need to find a different business for you to do because you're going to be a success, but the business is not. So founder first, business second, and then in line with the second business needs to be the market size and, you know, is there scale in this business to achieve what that founder's vision is? That
was my biggest lesson. The market makes or breaks a business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people undermine that. Yeah. Like you could have a phenomenal idea, but if there's no monetization, then there's no business.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of founders suffer with that. Like, great idea, let's build it, but then how do I charge a client? You know, is this a product that somebody's going to use daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, once a year? If it's once a year, is it worth that? Are you going to be able to acquire enough clients to justify that annual, you know, churn?
Absolutely, absolutely. But now, like with all the businesses that you've seen, I know that you said you love real estate, but maybe let's just put real estate on the side. With all the businesses that you've seen, if today you've lost everything, all your wealth, all your businesses, inshallah, but if it happens, what kind of business would you start?
Service industry. I love real estate, but don't get me wrong, I'm not naive enough to think or pretentious enough to claim that real estate doesn't need starting capital. For you to get into real estate, you need to have starting capital to buy land or investors that are willing to give you that to put into a land. And then you can add your touches and your USP and your brand and your marketing and your sales and deliver a good product and build from there and reshuffle and buy more. But if I was to go completely broke today and I had nothing to my name in terms of starting equity and no investors willing to back me, then service industry. Because service industry is an industry where you can start with zero to very low capital. You can create a great service. You can scale that service, build enough income from that business to then go into something like real estate that needs starting capital.
Yeah.
So service industry is a phenomenal business. Any service that allows you to be an intermediary, to earn, you know, service fees where you can start earning before you start spending, is where I'd go.
But with services, do you think it's actually that easy to scale?
Look, it doesn't have to be easy to scale. You need to start small, build enough to make enough to run your life so that you can look at what else you can do.
I'm not stealing your answer, but I really like services plus product. Start with services to get enough money and then get a product that's easier to...
100%. And most tech companies are services. But the problem is, it's not an issue, but people have this thing of like, no, I need to start a tech company first and raise a big round and build the product and then I'll perfect the business of the service. You don't have to do that. If you have nothing, start a service, start making money, use your own profits to build a product that you can then go out and scale, build a marketplace and, you know, bring aggregators under you and, you know, take it to a point. And not every company has to be a $1 billion company.
Absolutely not.
It needs to be something that's good, a sustainable business that's growing and giving you, you know, that satisfaction of being a successful business.
I will sound like a broken record, but that's exactly what I also think in terms of not every business fits this model or $1 billion business. Very successful businesses that have recurring income, 1 million, 2 million every year. And that's...
In fact, some of the most successful businesses in the world are the most boring businesses. Literally, I was looking at it globally, and the most successful and biggest businesses in the world are the most boring businesses that could exist. Whether it is from, you know, manufacturing to like just things that you would not even imagine.
Yeah.
So if somebody's looking to start a business, my first suggestion would actually be go start Googling what are the biggest businesses in terms of globally that exist that make good cash flow, good recurring income. Like the other day, I came across a company that's doing like crazy amounts, and they're just a printing business, printing press. And I was like, amazing. Boring business, lots of growth, lots of need in the market. You don't need to be cool and funky, you know?
That's my husband's obsession. He's like, I'm all for boring business. I'm like, I get it. Can't do it.
And by the way, real estate, you know, years ago was classified as a boring business. It's just that today, when the market's booming and it's all about, you know, the glitz and the glamour, and everybody's like, it's such a cool business. Ask someone 20 years ago to get into construction and they'd be like, oh, that's a boring business.
Yeah.
You know? I want to be Google. And that's okay. But it's the boring businesses that create cash flow.
While we're talking about real estate though, where do you think real estate is headed in the region?
That's a question we get daily. You know, I know there's been a lot of talk about, are we at the top? What about the supply that's coming in? My answer is very simple. As the city and country continues to grow at the pace it's been growing, completely thanks to the phenomenal leadership and initiatives that the government has been pushing, the market will continue to do well. And you can see that based on simply the volume of people that are moving here, you know, in a good way. But it is so hard to get a table anywhere in Dubai right now. You know, weekday, weekend, the malls are packed, the restaurants are packed.
The roads are packed.
And that's a blessing. People want to be here. It is one of the safest places in the world, one of the highest luxury benchmarks, some of the best education. Like, there is not one thing that is missing here. And if you ask me to move anywhere in the world today, I would say I'm happy where I am, you know? Yeah. And so as long as that continues to grow, Dubai and the UAE has continued to give more and more opportunities to those coming here. The volume of people that are moving here, not just high net worth individuals that people have been focused on, but every high net worth individual that moves his company here is bringing with him a large mass of people who need homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that influx of homes that's coming in is to serve the influx of people coming in. It's not empty homes that will just be there.
We keep hearing, it's a bubble, it's going to burst. What do you think the biggest misconception people have?
I think the biggest misconception people have is they're mirroring what has happened in the past, which is very different to where we are as a place today. You know, if the market was doing phenomenally well, but the roads were empty and the malls were empty and you'd only see rush during Christmas, then I'd be worried. The economy is running. People are coming here. People are moving here. People are happy to be here.
So for the foreign investors that are waiting for the market to crash because they think it's overvalued, what do you say to them?
Look, I think Warren Buffett says it very well. You can't time the market.
Yeah.
You could come in at times and your property could go down 10% or go up 30%. You cannot perfectly time the market. Is it a time right now to wait on the sidelines? I don't think so. If you're buying good product in good locations with top tier developers, you're not going to go wrong.
And now there are options for ownership. I mean, you spoke about fractional ownership
100%.
And it got a lot of attention, obviously, but people are skeptical, or some people are skeptical. What do you think the reason is?
Look, I think people are skeptical again because they look at the market's gone up so much. But what people misread or don't realize is that the market was massively discounted 6 years ago. Like what prices developers and secondary was trading at 6 years ago is today not even replacement cost of construction prices, right? So that's changed. Inflation has gone up. Price of product has gone up. Cement and steel has gone up 30% in the last couple of years. So you can't look at it as, but this house was, you know, at 2 million dirhams 3 years ago and now it's at 6. Yeah, but for me to build it today, the price of land has gone up, construction's gone up, the replacement cost is so much higher. Will it ever go to those prices again? No, it won't. The yields in Dubai are still of the highest globally. No city in the world will give you yields like the GCC today. You know, you're still getting an average of 6% net. 5 to 7% net. You know, where do you make that? With interest rates going down, it's still a great hedge. You make recurring income on your rental. You have capital appreciation over time. So, sorry, but if you buy a property and you made 7%, 6% a year for 5 years, and then the property at sale is worth 5% less, you've made that in just your rent, right? So, and if you take a mortgage, you pay it off, you own the asset fully, the rent pays the mortgage. It's you have to be smart with how you invest.
You said that Dubai has the highest yields, but is there any other market that you would bet on?
No, 100%. So first of all, I'm a huge fan of the UAE. Yeah. To be clear, I think Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Qawain, Sharjah, all are great cities that are doing very well. And I think that the UAE's rules and regulations are so secure that it really allows for transparency and easy ownership for anybody globally. Like our PRYPCO app, you can be sitting anywhere in the world and invest in Dubai in 3 minutes, and that's great. I don't see that happening anywhere.
How do you verify those investors?
So you log in, you do your KYC, which is proof of address and passport copy. You're verified, and then you can invest in any property in 3 minutes.
We'll wrap it up with one last question. What's next for you?
Just doing what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to continuing to grow, all the entities and businesses that I'm in continue to do well. It's not overrated to just want to do more of what you're doing.
I actually love that. That's refreshing to hear. Thank you so much, Amira.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Allah khalilak.
Thank you.